Saying sorry can get you in trouble. Hey disciples of the bad dude philosophy. Today I've got a video request from my buddy DB Cooper. DB says, "Stop saying I'm sorry, it's emasculating. Women love groveling men, men hate weak men." I'm not sure if DB was sarcastic with the love groveling men part, but I'll address either case anyway. First off, allow me to begin by expanding on the apology predicament first, and then I'll move to how women view groveling men, in my opinion. Now, contrary to the state-funded submissive Boy Scout goody two-shoes mentality brainwashing we were all subjected to while growing up, being too agreeable, apologetic, and supplicating, even if you're objectively in the wrong, sets a negative for you, frame and agreed upon narrative that you will find hard to get out of. Every human interaction you have is a negotiation. Even saying good morning to someone, the way you say it, the tonality, the body language, the frame of the interaction, determines who the dominant one is and who the follower or responder is, establishing the hierarchy of who is above whom in any given social engagement and interaction. As soon as you apologize, you paint the narrative that the party you're apologizing to are somehow the victim. Even if you apologize on behalf of someone else to someone who was not a direct victim, but who somehow has some connection with the actual victim, you're still thinking that you're being perceived as Machiavellian and virtuous, but you're perceived as weak, defeatist, submissive, and passive. Is there really any benefit to apologizing other than stroking your ego by self-congratulating to appear to have the moral high ground? Because that's the only reason. But guess what? The thing with apologies is that they put the supposed victim on an even higher moral high ground than you. Some historical examples. The US never apologized for the, quite frankly, inhumane nuclear attacks against Japan, or for the carpet bombing of women and children in Germany, both cases in World War II. If they had, you can bet that the Japanese and Germans would be considered today, by the mainstream narrative, to be some sort of oppressed minority with special feelings and a unique offended victim status. Same goes for Vietnam, with the devastation caused by the US being just as horrendous. The Soviets and China never formally apologized for executing collectively close to 80 million skeptics of socialism. If they had, then the dominant narrative today would see socialists as the infinitely apologizing villains and proponents of free voluntary markets, the oppressed victims, who would endlessly demand reparations for the misfortune of others just because they happened to have something in common with them. Turkey, the country, not the bird, never apologized for the Armenian and Greek genocides in the early 20th century, even though most Turks today don't deny the fact that they actually happened. Instead of apologizing, most of them just admit that such killings did happen, but were necessary. No sorry there for Armenians and Greeks. On the other hand, you have a perpetually apologetic US, which together with Great Britain were among the first, if not the first, in the world to outlaw slavery, where slaves of all races existed, and now somehow the prized status of victimhood belongs to a specific hue of color, and social division was created whereby a group of people who had nothing to do with that constantly reimburse another group of people who also had nothing to do with that. I wonder if the Arabs ever apologized for their slave trade from Eastern Europe and Africa, which dwarfed the Atlantic one, what the narrative would be today. If they ever did apologize, the narrative would be that of perpetual demand of reparations and victimhood points. Apologies are weakness. The more you give, the more they will demand. So yeah, being apologetic can get you in trouble, but that's because you show agreeableness, subcommunicating that you can potentially give even more. The best example is the nature of wildlife. Ever seen two predatory animals face off against each other? First they are locked in a Mexican standoff, flexing their muscles, abundantly displaying their teeth, and adopting a powerful stance. But neither attacks. The moment one of them backs off, it's as predictable as mathematics that the other will attack. Same in human wildlife. also known as MMA or boxing. The moment one fighter backs off, you can expect an immense display of aggression from the other, as he capitalizes on his opponent's retreat. Sure, you can develop strategies around that to lure someone as he attacks, but that's for higher minds, not for low IQ people with their predictable and utterly moronic dichotomy of oppressor and victim. Unfortunately, nobody appreciates kindness if it's apologetic, and those who receive apologies can gain out of your pathetic begging for forgiveness. It's predictable human behavior to demand more and more apologies once the first one is given. And this is why so many people pretend to be outraged out there, whining about whatever excuse they can come up with to receive more and more special benefits from the government, free coffee from Starbucks, or 15 minutes of fame. The moment you apologize, even if you're in the wrong, you invite aggression. It's predictable social dynamics. It's how we're programmed. You might think you gain favor by appearing to be virtuous if you apologize. See my Machiavelli video. But in the end, once they smell blood, you'll be surrounded by sharks demanding more and more apologies, and it's just not worth it. If you want to be truly Machiavellian, like today's politicians, you may be apologetic, but you pay up with other people's money if you can. That's called welfare, by the way. So what do you do when people demand an apology from you? Simple. Just don't give one. If you're in the wrong and you understand that you need to acknowledge that to salvage your relationships with people, just respond in a non-apologetic manner. Like this: I won't do that again. But don't apologize. Don't say the words "I'm sorry" or "I apologize" ever again. It sets a submissive frame, and those who witness you will never respect you again. If you think that being apologetic will improve your position in any way, you're wrong. If you do, they will nail you to a cross. Women especially will usually tell you to say sorry. You don't want emotional advice. That's the bad dude philosophy I'm attempting to convey to you. No one appreciates niceness. Jesus was nice, and look what they did to him. What I took from the Bible is that you should never be too nice. That's the gist of it. So, on that note, do women love groveling men? Easy answer: yes and no. No, because women go crazy over bad boys and let them get away with anything. That's a given because they're cool. And yes, because women end up marrying the nice guy sucker simp whom they exploit and treat badly, as he willingly submits to servitude. And he does not deserve better, to be fair. Let's not blame women all the time, and let's be men about it, because a sign of a true man is accountability. Whining about women all the time doesn't honor us. For example, look at this titan of a man here in this story. Don't know if this is true, but if a man celebrates his submission, then he has no right to complain, and neither do we have the moral authority to whine on his behalf. On the contrary, we should dislike such individuals for giving men a bad name. So yeah, you're almost right when you say that men hate weak men. I'd say that hate is a strong word. I'd use the word contempt and ridicule instead. It's human nature, human dynamics, and the plain simple supply and demand economics. It is what it is. So there you go, man. I hope your question was answered sufficiently. Women are not attracted by weak males, but they find good use for them for their dependable utility alone. Because the charm and value of a bad boy is the fact that he is never dependable. So thank you for listening, boys and girls. Stay in touch and see you next time. You are awesome.